power of hot yoga and the benefits, body, mind, and soul, physical, mental, and spiritual. And when you can put all three together, what a difference it's going to make. Well, we're going to talk about the physical first. Because face it, that's why most people do yoga these days. In the last, let's say, 25 years, people are coming for the physical, to get more flexible, to get stronger, to get more physically fit, to stay in shape, to lose weight. Also to get rid of mental stress, and that's the mental part. We're going to talk about that second. And I'm going to give you some tips on how you can even maximize the benefits of hot yoga. Let's talk about the obvious. Flexibility. You're going to get more flexible in hot yoga than you've ever imagined. That's going to be the first thing that's going to happen. One, because of the heat. The heat's going to allow the body to be more open, more pliable. And alignment. Proper alignment. The metaphor I like to use is like the key that opens the door. The tumblers have to fit in perfectly in order to get the intended release. So coupled with alignment concepts and the heat is going to allow for a greater range of motion where you're going to get more flexible than you can ever imagine. Before we continue on, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button. Any comments you have, questions or frustrations, put them in the comments below. I get to all the comments. You want to learn all about hot yoga, tutorials, flows, factoids like this video, hit the like and subscribe button right now. For some reason, I have a hard time enunciating subscribe. I always say it too fast. Subscribe now. Hot yoga. So I'm not just talking about turning the heat on, even though my teacher Bikram really started the whole hot yoga revolution. Even in Calcutta, when he was a boy, he would close the windows at Ghosh's College of India because he felt in the heat he could get a lot more flexible, and some of the other students would complain to Ghosh, Bikram's closing the windows, it's too hot. So Bikram started the hot yoga movement, and when he went to Japan and it was much colder, he started to plug in heaters and heat lamps, and that's where the whole hot yoga concept came from. And now many or numerous styles of yoga do yoga in the hot room because hot yoga has now become, like I say, a revolution in the West. However, what I consider to be the original hot yoga is not necessarily an adjective but a noun to describe Ghosh's approach, which Bikram brought to this country in the 70s, and I continue the tradition through the Barkan method. Let's go back to the heat and why the heat is so revolutionary and what it's going to do to your body. Bikram's favorite metaphor, and my favorite metaphor as well, is that if you take a piece of steel to a blacksmith and you say you want a knife or a sword made out of it, what's the first thing the blacksmith is going to do? He's going to put it in the fire to heat up the metal to get it soft and pliable. Because if you start banging on the cold piece of steel, you're going to break your hammer. So now we get the body loose, we get the connective tissues soft, and now we can move the body in ways that can never be moved before, especially if your body is super tight. When I work with many of the professional athletes, especially the football players, and especially the NBA, the basketball players, I believe, were the tightest. They had a very fast metabolism, they're really tall, very hard for them to move. The heat was essential for them, and then you become addicted to it, especially if you've been doing hot yoga for a while, you know what I'm talking about. In that heat, you're going to get more open, more flexible than you can ever imagine. The second part of that equation of the physical is that, and this is sort of a misconception of yoga, it's not just about flexibility. Strength is just as important as flexibility. It's the combination of the two. I've said this before in my videos. My mother was super flexible. She could sit in lotus position all day long and watch television, but she had a tough time balancing on one leg. She didn't have the strength to support her flexibility. So we've got to get the muscles strong to support that flexibility. So here's a great tip for you. Let's say you're stronger than you are flexible. A lot of times men have to have a tendency to be stronger than they are flexible, but there's obviously lots of exceptions. But let's just say you're one of those people, men or women, you're stronger than you are flexible. Then here's your concept I suggest that you use in the class. Don't work so hard. Don't work on strengthening your muscles and holding on really tight because you have the strength. I see this happen in my class all the time. I say, relax more. You're strong enough. You don't have to exert extra effort for you to maintain your balance because you have the balance. What you have to think about is to be loose and relaxed and soften your body. You can stay, let's say we're doing standing head to knee. You can stay there for a longer period of time, probably longer than the average person because you have the strength. But you have to relax in your mind the muscles in the body so they can be more pliable and move through. And in fact, if you use too much tension and stress, you're going to create too much lactic acid. You're going to have to give up early. So you have to back off, use less strength, let the flexibility be your focus so the flexibility can catch up to your strength. Now, the flip side of that coin, if you're more flexible than you are strong, the exact opposite has to happen. You have to exert yourself more. You've got to bring in more tension in the muscles. Tighten up the legs, tighten up the muscles, tighten up your body so you can stay there in a longer period of time. And a really good tip to do, let's say we're back to standing head to knee again, give yourself a tangible goal in timing. Let's say you know you can only hold the posture for 15 seconds and you just give up. Your just body can't take it anymore. Give yourself a goal for 17 seconds. I don't want you necessarily counting so much, but you have an internal clock. So when you know you're pretty much at your maxed out time, give yourself 2 more seconds. I do it to one of my students, a senior Barkan teacher that comes to my class now on a regular basis and is one of my big assistants now here in Fort Lauderdale, Elena. I have to do the same thing for her almost every time.
Push drop. Then the body curls in, tucks the head to the knee. Go ahead. Go ahead. Touch it in. Not much time left. Final position. Change.
Give me 10 more seconds. Just I can feel she's losing her balance. Give me 10 more seconds. And I count it down, and most of the time she'll hold it. But if I didn't give her those 10 seconds, she would have given up. So the point is, give yourself that tangible goal. If you're more flexible than you are strong, you have to think strength, strong. Let the strength catch up to the flexibility. Now, if you're not strong or flexible, you don't have either one going for you, you got to come more. You got to come to class a lot more.
It's not funny.
What's my recommendation? How many times you should come to a hot yoga class? 4 times a week should be minimum. 5 times a week is great. 6 times is ideal. I'm not a proponent of doing 7 times a week. I think you need 1 day to have your body recover and relax. And if you're going to do 4 or 5, do them in a row. Don't do 2 and then take 2 days off and do 2, or don't do 2 and take a day off, do 2 more. Right away, one after the other, because you want to use that consistency because you're going to build momentum through the week. So if you're taking every other day off, you're always on Monday. You're not building the momentum to get through to that final week, to get through those last 2 days of the week. That's where the real magic happens. That's when the body's really going to break through. Back to the heat again. I remember when I was in India, we took a tour of the Gandhi Museum, and they didn't have air conditioning in that museum. It was so hot in India. It was so hot that day. We walked into the museum, walked through it pretty quickly, came out, and everybody's shirt was soaking wet because we were all sweating so much. It's so much hotter in India with a high degree of humidity. So that's what Bikram was really doing. He was recreating the conditions, at least of Calcutta, where it's 100 degrees with 100% humidity, which is almost too hot. And one other great side note for physical benefit, it's great for hangovers, but more mild hangovers, not severe hangovers. And unfortunately, I've had both. But if you go into a yoga class from a severe hangover, the reason why that's not necessarily great is because you're dehydrated and now you're walking into that heat and this is too much. But if it's a mild hangover, it's really great. It's like the hair of the dog. It's really an amazing way to recover quickly because your body's going to detox. Because you're going to detox your body. And after you do the class, you've heard about runner's high, where the endorphins kick in. And the yoga class, in my opinion, is 10 times greater because it's not just a physical endorphin rush. It's also a holistic high because we're moving the pranic energy, which is going to bring us to the third point, but we're going to go to the second point first, and that's the mental and emotional. So when you're laying after a yoga class, you're going to feel so amazing. I remember I was driving home from class one day when I was in Los Angeles before I came to Florida. I was about to open my yoga school in Florida. And as I'm driving home, I'm saying to myself, am I going to be happy in Florida? I really don't know if I want to leave LA and Bikram and Beverly Hills and the palm trees and the whole thing. And then I said to myself, and I knew that Florida was the right move for me. And now looking back, I'm so happy that I came to Florida. It's been my home for 40 years. But I remember driving home and saying to myself, I'm always going to feel this good. I can take my yoga with me wherever I go. And every single day, I can feel absolutely amazing. Again, not just from the endorphin rush, but also from the pranic and the Shakti energy that's flowing inside the body that's going to create this holistic high that I can have with me every single day of my life. Which then brings us to the mental and the emotional, because there's no way you can finish a hot yoga class and feel depressed or anxious, especially after the last shavasana. I know in the Bikram world he says savasana, but Sanskrit is actually pronounced shavasana. People just don't want to get up. They feel so amazing. They lay there. Sometimes they fall asleep. But if you can stay up, you can stay present, it's an extraordinary experience. It's also a great time to meditate right after the intense yogic asana that we do in a hot room. That's why they created yoga asana in the first place, to get the body open, to get the juices flowing so the yogi could sit in meditation for a longer period of time. Another amazing benefit is that people are in recovery, alcohol and drug abuse. Yoga can be an extraordinary tool to help them with the recovery. Back in the late 1980s and the early 1990s, I was on television many, many times. I would bring in Bikram, I would bring in different doctors, and we talk about the benefits of yoga. One particular show, I brought an addictionologist from Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami.
Basis.
Well, for 9 years, I had a yoga instructor who came in twice a week and did yoga classes. the disease of addiction is considered to be a physical, mental, social, and spiritual illness. And I didn't know until I spoke with Jim that that's the approach that yoga uses. But it just seemed to me an opportunity for the patients to get in touch with their physical being and their spiritual being. And so we brought a yoga instructor in, and it just was an excellent experience for the
Started
patients.
out as giving the people in rehabilitation something to do and ended up as much more than that.
So using hot yoga specifically has an extraordinary effect on helping people in recovery. So from a mental, emotional point of view, especially after class, and having that extraordinary, like I said, that holistic high, that holistic rush that happens, not just the endorphin rush, pranic energy, the Kundalini Shakti energy and the Shakti energy that awakens inside, not just the physical, but the ethereal body. Let's talk about this in my last Shavasana. You got the blood and oxygen working into the cells to rebuild the physical body, and you have the Prana Shakti working between the cells to help heal the ethereal body, and that's where the holistic high comes in. And now afterwards, especially if you're doing yoga on a daily basis, what a difference it's going to make for your mental, emotional state of mind. And in that final Shavasana, reasons why people don't want to get up right away and start their day, because we're in such a rush in these days in societies, because we found a way to quiet the mind, and we found a way to get into the present moment. So we lay nice and quiet and still. And that really brings us to the spiritual part, which is number 3, the spiritual aspect of yoga. Now, Patanjali, who's arguably the forefather of modern day yoga, his yoga was more about the second part, was quieting the mind. Because he said in order to find the connection with the universe, to find the connection with God, and yoga means yoga, union with God or the universe, or whatever God means to you. But he said we got to quiet the mind first. So Patanjali yoga, which also is known as classical yoga, is yoga of the mind, to quiet the mind. But then again, that brings us to the spiritual, because that was Patanjali's main intention. We quiet the mind to now connect with the soul, to nourish the soul. So I say this in class, but I used to say it all the time. We strengthen the body, quiet the mind to nourish the soul. And the reason why they created yoga in the first place, the shamans were the first ones to really intuit the science. And they saw that people were suffering. People suffer today for the same reason, suffering because we're under the illusion that we're separate beings. So what they want to do is yoke. So the concept of yoga was to yoke, to create a union between man and God, man and the universe, to shatter that illusion. So the original intention of yoga is not doing the yogic asana, not so we can straighten our leg and standing bow. The original intention of yoga is to find this union and a connection. And when we're able to find and realize ourselves and realize that we are part of God, we are part of the universe, all the suffering is shattered. In Buddhism, they call it nirvana. Nirvana means extinction, extinction from the suffering. Samadhi, pretty much the same thing, where it means liberation. We're liberating ourselves from the physical world, which can create separation. But the true intention of yoga is to shatter that separation, is to shatter that illusion. And even though yoga comes from Hinduism, the yogis encourage it to be Unitarian, meaning it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with the spirituality, which is a common denominator for all religions. In fact, when Yogananda, in his prayer, and Yogananda was my teacher's guru, Vishnu Ghosh's guru, he would say, when he would do a prayer to the universe, he would say, and saints and sages of all religions, bringing that Unitarian concept to the science. So Vishnu Ghosh's older brother, Paramahansa Yogananda, arguably one of the most famous yogis that ever came to India. When he taught a yoga class, when he came in the 1920s, when he taught yoga classes in Boston in the 1920s, he wasn't teaching an asana class. He wasn't teaching what we know now today as postural yoga. When he was teaching a yoga class, he was teaching meditation techniques, meditation being the highest form of yoga. So the last thing you want to say is, I did my yoga and then I meditated. That would be redundant because meditation is the highest form of yoga. But how we transition into the postural yoga as a Western society, partly because of Vishnu Ghosh, because Vishnu Ghosh saw the tremendous healing effects that the postures had on the body. So Vishnu Ghosh's intention in creating hot yoga, not just heating the room, but this particular style of yoga, Vishnu Ghosh to Bikram to Barkan, and now shared by other branches as well, is to heal the body through yogic postures or asana. And we do it physically, mentally, and spiritually. And we can have all three together in our mind and in our consciousness and in our intention. It makes all the difference. Physical, mental, and emotional, and spiritual. When it all comes together, the magic happens. So that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the like button. Any comments you have, put them down below. I get to all the comments. Any questions or concerns you have, I'd love to hear from you and love to get back to you. And I'll see you the next video. Bye, everyone.